There's a weird part of sobriety where nothing is technically wrong, but you still feel uncomfortable in your own skin. That's what we're talking about next. Welcome to the Sober Friends Podcast. We talk about stuff like this, about learning to sit with yourself. My name is Matt J. Over there is Steve. Good morning, Steve. What's up?
Not much, Matt. Just a beautiful day up here in New England and looking forward to it. So, all good.
Yeah, I already got my yard work done yesterday, but I'll find a way to putter around finding things to do. Here's a question for you. When did you first realize that getting sober didn't automatically make you comfortable with yourself?
It was right away. I mean, I wasn't comfortable with myself for years. I mean that, years and years after I got sober. Mm-hmm. It took me a long time to learn that, and feel that. And even today, I struggle with that. Right? I mean, that's not. Mm-hmm. It's not like I fixed that, because I didn't fix that. But it. The program has helped me understand that those are feelings and how to deal with those feelings and how to think about those feelings and how to interact with those feelings. And as I always love to say, it doesn't mean I always do that stuff perfectly, but
right.
I have the tools to really take a deep breath. And, I've had some challenges going on in the last week or so. And I really, listen, I'll say, I don't usually say it a lot. I'm proud of myself at how hard I've worked with it. Some of the emotional stuff and not getting too crazy and not getting resentful and not being punitive when I don't get something that I like and all that kind of stuff that I was just so much embedded in me. Damn. And so that's still a struggle, but I do better with it today, and therefore the people around me, I think, do better with all that stuff too.
That's who the real winner is. The people around us who don't have to deal with the storm of us. And I wish I did that more perfectly as well. This is a great time to talk about how just because you're not doing a 12-step program or recovery perfectly doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It was very easy for me early on to look at the old timers I admired and figure out, why am I doing it so wrong when they're doing it perfectly? And they don't do it perfectly either. Nobody does. You can put yourself out there and make a best intent. This was early on for me too, realizing that it didn't make you're not going to automatically be comfortable with yourself. I think that's kind of the point, is to feel these feelings. As I've been going through this medicine taper, I've been thinking about I thought about this yesterday, maybe this whole I'm uncomfortable and I'm more anxious than normal is I'm actually feeling stuff that I haven't felt for in a long time, and that's what's uncomfortable. And so how do I deal with that? And it goes back to the beginning of how do you deal with these things before you had something other than alcohol. It just was an aha yesterday.
Yeah, I like those moments. Well, I can't say I always like those moments because they're not always good aha. I mean, they're good ahas, but a lot of them is oh, aha, oh, shit.
Good aha, painful.
Right. Aha, painful. Aha. Oh, I've been doing this wrong. Aha. Whatever it might be. But it's still, the moment itself is still helpful and beneficial and all that kind of stuff. Again, what we always talk about, the aha doesn't do anything. It's the action afterwards that does something. And, when you said something there, but I just didn't know how to deal with, I always talk about this. I talk about it with a lot of people, that my emotions were like a roller coaster, right? And my emotions were way up and down. I was either and I'm not manic depressive. I've never been diagnosed that. I don't feel like I am. I've done enough talk therapy and stuff. I'm not overly depressive. I certainly have depressive points. I'm not clinically depressive. I certainly get down and blue and all those things. But my emotions would ride high and low. And what I realized, again, 6, 7, 8 years into this sobriety, when I really like came to terms with it, is it's not only my emotions, but it's my expectations that are connected to those emotions, right?
Oh, tell me more.
Well, if I had expectations that something, whatever it might be, it could be a project at home, right? And a little project I did yesterday, and my next door neighbor came over and helped me, and I was ever grateful. But there was one little thing I felt like rushed because he was there helping me. There was one little thing I wanted to do, which I didn't do, which probably means nothing to anybody, but it just enough of that. Like I look at it and go, I wish I did that this way. But what I mean by that is like, so when I have this expectation, again, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's dealing with sex, whether it's dealing with anything, when I have this expectations and I'm excited about something, right? And then that the reality of that situation, again, whatever it might be, project, movie, trip, go to visit somebody, doesn't work out. I've always said it's the delta between those two things. Like, how far down do I have to come emotionally from my expectations, right? And I used to crash hard. I would crash hard when those things happened. And it would ruin me for days. I mean it. It would ruin me for days. I'd be miserable. I'd be resentful. I'd be vindictive. Or just, depending on what it was. I mean, if it was just a project or something, I just would be miserable, So anyway, so I always had to deal with that. And, and then talking to enough alcoholics, I learned that, like, I have to live with that. I have to, first of all, I have to feel those feelings. That's what you said. I lost my head. You said, I'm feeling feelings that I never felt before, right? And it's not that I didn't feel them before. It's just that when I felt them, I usually I usually poured alcohol into myself so I didn't have to feel them. So now I'm sitting there with feelings that I don't like them. I don't have my alcohol or drugs to sort of help me with those. So what do I have? How do I do it? And you can sit in it and stew, right? You can white knuckle your emotions just like you could white knuckles your urge to drink, or you can do something about it. And that's where, listen, talk therapy helps, right? If you're doing therapy stuff, I talk about it all the time. My meetings are sort of group therapy for me. They really are, because I share a lot. I don't go to meetings and sit there. I go to meetings and share, and I often talk about what's going on in my life. Some of it very ugly. When I'm struggling, I'm going to my meetings talking about me struggling. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't care if it's off topic. That's how I survive. That's what I do at my meetings.
I've gotten a lot.
Yeah, no, that's why I choose the meetings I go to, right? Because those meetings are accepted. There's an acceptance to be able to do that, right? Without a lot of feedback or pushback, or you shared too long, or you shouldn't share. Like, I'd never hear that from any of the meetings I go to, because nowadays I can regulate that, right? Nowadays I don't have to go on and on and on about it. But man, I go there, and it's a learned experience. Like, I have to learn how to do that.
You go to a meeting and you've broken those unwritten rules for whatever that meeting is.
Yeah.
You're a real crumb bum.
Right.
You're not sharing the right way. I've gotten a lot more comfortable with going off topic. And I think you should too. If you're going to a meeting and you're feeling something, go. It's really okay. The meeting's for you. Oh God, I had something there from what you said before about sharing. Yeah, I know what it was. Being an active participant. If you're going to a meeting, be as much of an active participant as you can. You're going to get more out of the meeting. There are times that, like, I don't want to open my mouth, or I don't have the words. I try to be an open participant as much as I can, because you are going to get more out of it. And you never know. There are times I've gone in and shared something just to get it out, and then I have 5 people come up to me.
Oh, yeah.
And it helps them. Or they can say, hey, I have felt that way too. Here's what I did. And the more you open your trap, the more you're inviting somebody else in to give you a solution. And sitting with yourself doesn't mean you have to obey every uncomfortable feeling. It's understanding or that there's an uncomfortable feeling there, and you don't have to drink to get past it. You mentioned earlier about the expectations. And maybe it was you who said this or somebody else, that expectations are kind of like the wreckage of the future. That you have to be very careful with expectations. And I can understand that I have a certain expectation of the way this is going to go. And if this doesn't go exactly as planned, it failed. I can think that way about my to-do list at work or the things I want to get done around the house. And instead of looking at, here are all the things I actually did get done, I see the list is incomplete. Therefore, I didn't do it right.
Yeah.
And that's not the correct thing. So, Steve,
No.
when you're... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, exactly right. I mean, I happen to me all the time. I have a list of things that I want to do, and if I don't get to it, and this was partly due to yesterday. Like I said, well, actually, yesterday worked out better than I thought. I wasn't even sure. Like I had a project I wanted to do, and it was well within my bailiwick. I could do this project, but it would take me a long time, and my neighbor shows up who's a builder. He's a carpenter, and he shows up and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" So I tell him I'm building this wall where I had these doors, and he's like, "Yeah, what are you doing?" And he's talking to me, and I think he's just there to chat because he works a lot on Saturdays, and I'm like, "What do you got going? You working today?" He goes, "Oh no, I just came over here to see if you give you a hand for a couple hours," and we banged this thing out in no time, you know. So my expectations on that project were met, but there's a whole nother project I got to do. And it's like, they're side by side projects. And it's like, I sit there and now I said, okay, the other project isn't done. The other part isn't done. The other part, and trust me, I've been up all morning, right? I've been up since 5:30, having my coffee, thinking about, okay, I got to build some doors, a little bit more complicated than that one. It's like, I could be unsatisfied, even though this is my point. I had such a beautiful day yesterday with this project. It all came out great. It's done way faster. It was done way faster than I thought, literally a few hours rather than all day. And yet there's very little satisfaction of this because I got half of the project that I still have to work on. So that is going to just wear on me until I get to that next part of the project. So it's always like you said, when you have a list and you don't get to a certain part of it, you feel like, okay, that was an unsuccessful day. I did 7 out of 9 things, but it was an unsuccessful day, right?
Right. I had a great day on Thursday with my list, and it still felt a little bit like, well, I've got all this stuff done from the list, but is the list that I'm working from, is that really, are those the things I should have been doing? Should I have been doing something else? And it ends up becoming something that is an uncomfortable thing. And then the next day I've got my list. I got quite a bit. I was sitting there doing some personal development on Friday, and I'm asking myself, all right, I'm doing some personal development stuff. Is that the right thing for me to be doing? Have I made a mistake doing that? When the obvious thing is, it's good to spend 2 hours at work thinking out a plan for yourself for the things that you want to work on so that you can develop, as opposed to just, I've got to dive into the task. And that is an anxiety-driven thing. I have to think about where this used to come from, too, because it is an echo of the past, of fear. I think was fear and feeling not good enough were big drivers of this. And I think that that's what it comes back to. If I don't finish all the yard work that I want to get done, it's a feeling of feeling not good enough because I can't get done what other people can. And I let the obstacles get in my way.
That's why I got Mikey coming over today. Give me a hand doing yard work, right? That's what it is. Like, that's why you talked about, right? You passed off some of that stuff. I've got some other yard work. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you exactly. This whole project I was talking about, I reached out to somebody. There was somebody in the program who was looking. They said they had some credit card bills, and they were looking for some weekend work to try to do somebody who's done work for me before. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to this person, like. And like I said, I don't mind doing this. I actually like doing some of this work, but I looked at it as a way to help somebody else out, right? He was looking for money. He had to run up some credit card bills after he had gotten hurt. I was like, hey, are you looking for work for the weekends? Because I got a couple of projects here that I'd be happy to engage you. I would help you do them, but just like my neighbor came and helped me, we knock it off much faster, right? And pay him. And he was like, no, I can't do it. I'm busy. No, fine, right? And I've got some landscaping work like you were talking about, right? Remember the stuff that you talked about your neighbor? Like, I would love to have that neighbor. I'm not even kidding. I would love to have that neighbor come in and say, hey, here's what I want, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think? Walk through it. Help me flesh it out with an idea, and then you go ahead and do it, and I'll pay you, and I'll pay for all the stuff, right? And boom, it's done. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get better at that. It's the old saying: the only thing I hate worse than cutting my grass is paying somebody to cut my grass. Right? And that's the dilemma for me.
Yeah.
So the only thing worse than me paying somebody to do a job that I could do is to pay somebody to do a job I could do. So it's always that thing. But as I've gotten older, I've started to relax a little bit on that and something, I can afford to pay some people to do some work for me. I won't have to think about it. So I've got this whole thing in my head of how I want to transform my front yard to get rid of some of my turf grass and do some more plantings and stuff like that, because I hate turf grass. But it's a lot. If I do it myself, two things. It's a lot of work.
Yep.
And over 40 years, not 40 years because I haven't really done it, over the last 25 years, I realized that I'm not really good at that stuff. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm not good at that stuff. Even though it's just digging holes and putting plants in the ground, I'm just not good at it. So I have to accept that too, right? And that's one of the other things, right? When we start talking about, I have to accept it. I'm not good at that. Mm-hmm. So maybe I need help with that, right? And it's the same thing. So maybe when I'm starting to feel these weird feelings and bad feelings and all this kind of stuff, maybe I need help. Maybe I need to talk to another alcoholic. Maybe I need to call somebody, and then see what I could figure out.
That is a great recovery revelation of when you become now comfortable with the uncomfortable thought that there are things that you are not good at. And we as people have talents and we have personality profiles. I did a lot of Myers-Briggs work in a previous job. When I worked at Lego, we did a personality profile called Insights, where you figure out where you get your energy from. And we are all different. We weren't designed to be great at everything. We're insanely good at a bunch of things, and then we're blind on other things. And there's two ways you can go about this. You can develop a skill. I think there's certain things that we have that we're never going to be great at, but we can be competent, or we can leverage another talent to be good at something. Or we can recognize that and ask for help. But it is not, the option number 3 is not productive around thinking through, I'm not good at this, so therefore I'm bad. I'll give you an example. When it comes to like that yard work, I needed help from my neighbor because there was a lot of overgrown stuff, and I wouldn't even know where to begin with getting rid of it. And if it's an overwhelming task, that's something that just causes me to shut down, as opposed to break it in small parts. I see it all, and I'm like, I can never get to this, so I'm going to end up doing nothing.
Right.
So in that case, you kind of have to ask for help from somebody who can see that stuff. Now that he has done that work for me, I can do the work of maintaining it, which I have been very good at.
It's you said it right. I get to a point where I get frozen and I do nothing, and I can't do anything. And I got several projects now around the house, and my wife just said to me the other day, something was going on. I forget what we were doing. She's like, "Are you just passing time doing stuff to get to a certain point?" And I said, "Honey, I don't waste past time to do stuff. I just select something that's on my list. Like I've told her this before. Like I have a running list, mostly in my head, of things that I want to do, and then I also try to get an idea of like how long that project takes, and what could I squeeze in, and I'm constantly like, I have projects that I do when it's raining out, right? Like, which are indoor projects, maybe in the basement or garage. Like my whole head is filled with that kind of stuff. And there's so many things out there that I look at and I just go, I've been wanting to do them there. This one project where I had some walls rotten. Like I knew I had to get to this, and I've been looking at it recently. Like I got to get to this soon, and it's a bad time to do it, because it is the beginning of the spring season. There's lots of yard work to do, right? And mowing and cleanup. For me to take a whole weekend and do this type of project. But again, this is why I've called up my buddy Mike, and I'm going to pick him up after the podcast. And I'm going to come over and say, "Hey, Mike, I want you to clean up my yard and mow my yard." Right? Boom. That way I don't have to do it. That way that's done for the next week. And I could go on. And that's my way of asking for help. And Mike is a guy who could use the money again. So I do two things. One is I'm able to help Mike out, and we go on retreat together. Typically, what he does is he works with me, and then we put a tab up until his retreat is paid off, and then after that, I'll start giving him cash for anything, and that way he gets to go to retreat without having to worry about paying for it. So again, it took me a while to do that kind of stuff, and then. Well, again, it's always, for me, it's always a process. I'm such a slow learner, not a slow learner, but man, it's so hard to drag me to new places, right?
Yep.
It really is so hard to drag me to new places. But I don't know. I'm getting there. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get more. And the other thing is, right, then I'm, with some of the stuff, right? I have a wife, and we don't always agree on stuff. So then I got two people to drag to certain places, right? Which always becomes an issue too. We're like, "Hey, I want to do something here. What do you think?" And then trying to get two people to agree, and if it's a good idea or timing.
That makes me crazy.
Yeah. And we had a thing. We're having one of our fireplaces, just a little bit work done on it. And I just told him, like, "Honey, we've been talking about doing this for years." And I brought in a guy who's done some work for us before. He gave me a quote, and I just texted him. I'm like, "Set it up." And I told her that. She goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Honey, we've been talking about it for years. We should do it. We have the money to do it. We should pull the trigger and do it." So, again, I know these sound like, if you're out there, you're wondering, what the hell are we talking about? Why we're not talking about alcoholism, but we are. We are, because these are the stresses of life. These are the feelings. These are the things. These are the things that we've had many arguments in my relationship with, which in the past, when I was a drinking man, would have caused me to drink. Like if we were trying to describe a project and I didn't get my way and I was drinking, then I'd be like, "Fuck this."
Yeah, going off topic is what Bill from Sober Not Mature loves. If you're not seeing that this is tied into alcoholism, I don't believe you're listening properly. And this is where we go with this podcast anyways, that all of the stuff in life is our alcoholism. All of it. Because it is the normal stuff in life that we can't navigate without the help of alcohol. So all of this stuff that feels like, trying to get together a plan to mow my lawn, that in itself is difficult.
Right.
That's alcoholism, that we have to learn much later than normal people do how to navigate simple, normal things. And that's kind of the dirty secret of why did I drink? Because I never developed the skills to handle the mundane, normal things in life that other people seem to have figured out. I don't think anybody has it figured out, but for us, that alcohol was the thing that glossed that over. And then you remove the alcohol, and there's a lot of things I got to work on with, relationships, the damage I had. And some of that is, how the hell do I figure out the step to mow the lawn, then do the weed trimming? For me, it's mow the lawn, do the weed trimming, and then get the backpack blower on so I can clean up the grass clippings that are on the street. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff is, you kind of need a program to help you. There's a lot of that in an AA meeting, which is, how do I do those things? How do I get together a plan to get rid of the weeds that are in front of my yard? That's a lot of what you hear in a meeting. It's not, how do I drink? How do I drink better?
Right. No. And again, you're right. Now, if you're new and you're like, well, that's not going to help me, you're right. I get it. Mm-hmm. If you're new, that's not going to help you. But I'm going to tell you something. If you're new, and if you come to any meeting that I go to, I'm sure any meeting that Matt goes to, we're going to make sure you get a chance to talk about what's on your mind. We're going to make sure that one of the things we say in any meeting, that the topic can be changed at any time, or if you have mm-hmm. something to share. Again, these are meetings I go to. I'm sure there's some meetings out there. They want you to stick to the topic. In a lot of meetings, they still do. Is like, if you're new, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. But I don't feel that way.
Nor do I.
So if you come there and you share what's going on, two things will happen. You said it earlier. If you share about what's going on, somebody is going to step up to you after the meeting, right? They're going to. They're going to step up and say, hey, I can help you with that, or I know I can help with somebody, or hey, do you want to exchange phone numbers? And whatever. Somebody's going to talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. And then it's up to you, just like it's up to us, to take action and try to accept that help, which is difficult.
That's the second part. That's hard.
Right. It's accept that help. And they'll go, yep. Sure, I'll give you a call. Let's go have coffee. Let's go get another meeting. Whatever that might be. So, yeah, it's an ongoing process. Again, it's a lifetime process for me.
I don't remember if I shared this on the podcast or not. I did share it in a meeting a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember who I'm talking to about what, but I talked about tapering off an anti-anxiety medication, an SNRI, which affects both the serotonin and the norepinephrine. If I'm pronouncing that kind of correctly. And this stuff I'm very sensitive to and has been a bitch to get off of. Not getting off of it because I don't think I should be on medication, but if you change to something else, you kind of have to get off of one. And I shared that in the meeting that I'm struggling with it, and I'm still struggling with it. And somebody at the meeting texted me, I appreciate you shared that. And it was off topic. I appreciate you shared it. I could relate. I've gone through that in the past, and it was so hard for me. And it started a conversation, and there were people came up, gave me a hug, and I wasn't expecting that. And that doesn't seem like, well, how is that alcohol? You're talking about tapering off a medication. You're tapering off of something that helped get you through your feelings. This happens to be a more productive way because it is a pharmaceutical medication that helps you with your anxiety as opposed to alcohol. But it is still, you're withdrawing from something because you have become dependent upon it, and you have to apply those recovery principles to it. And there are a lot of people who are able to be encouraging, and I wasn't expecting that. And it was incredibly helpful to know, even though I've got to get through this pain, I'm not doing this alone. Right. And I think if we feel through some of those uncomfortable feelings, it does change in time. In your early sobriety, you were sitting with that and say, I can't stand this feeling. As you're growing, you're feeling as though I hate this feeling, but I know it'll pass. And then mature sobriety is this feeling is uncomfortable, but it does not own me. And damn it, I think I might be between growing sobriety and mature sobriety on some things. You're on that spectrum that you're not always at mature sobriety, so it's okay.
It's exercising, it's exercising your ability to do emotional things, just like we do our body. We talk about this, right? Just, you can't go out and run a 5K. Most of us can't, or a marathon, or climb a mountain without putting some work in, right? And you have to work yourself up to a place where it becomes something that you can handle. And that's the journey that we're on when it comes to our sobriety. It's like, how do I work up to a place where all of these emotional and life twists and turns don't ruin me, don't push me to a place where, number one, I lose my shit, and number two, eventually, maybe not right away, eventually I just decide I don't care enough, and I'll just go out and drink, and those are real possibilities, for many people. I know enough people with lots of good sobrieties who share that they're not immune to picking up a drink, right? They're not immune to it. And that's why we talk about our life stuff, because as much as we both have some decent sobrieties, double-digit sobrieties under our belts, we're not immune to picking up a drink. Or
no.
So, and I think that when I think I become immune to it is when I'm really in trouble, and that's the truth.
It's not the actual withdrawal feelings of alcohol that are going to make me drink at this time. It is the accumulation of other stuff that has happened that I haven't effectively worked through.
Right.
That are going to leave me to feeling hopeless. And if I feel hopeless enough, then what does it matter whether I drink or not?
Right.
At that point, it doesn't matter. I'm not doing any more or less harm than what's going on now. And I can get to that point. There's an escalation ladder I'd have to climb up to get there, or climb down, depending on your perspective. So getting to these things ahead of time is the key, and that's that constant work. In mature sobriety, the constant work isn't, I've been white knuckling it for 10 years. It has been, I am managing through life, as opposed to early on where you're white knuckling it. But if you put that aside, eventually you get to that point where you're at that white knuckle stage. So I want you to walk away with 3 takeaways today. Discomfort is not failure. Feeling anxious, restless, or afraid doesn't mean you're doing sobriety wrong. You don't have to obey every feeling. A feeling can be real without being in charge. Oy, that's a hard one for me. And the next step, the next right small thing counts. Sobriety's built on small moments where you stay instead of run. So for you listening, what's one feeling that you're learning to sit with instead of running from? I'd love for you to email matt@soberfriendspod.com. Steve, getting sober gives us the chance to stop escaping ourselves. Learning to sit with yourself is part of learning that you're safe enough to stay. Thank you for helping me work through this today.
You're welcome, Matt.
We'll see everybody. Yeah, we'll see everybody next week. Bye, everyone.